But how many of you know that things don't always turn out the way you planned? Most of you raised your hand, and those of you who didn't are in denial right now. Because things just don't turn out the way you planned, because one hand's still up. They just don't, especially if you're surrendered to God's plan.
That's right.
Because it's been my experience that God's plan is so much greater than any plan you could ever even think of. And somehow or another, we get the idea that we've got some really great plans. We put together this wonderful idea, good stuff, kingdom work, ministry, and missions work, and preaching and teaching and singing, and all these good, things that fit into the kingdom realm. We can have all these great ideas and these great big plans, and we think that God should look down and say, wow, why didn't I think of that? And that he should just come down and be a part of our great big plans. And that's not what your calling is tonight. Your calling is to be part of his plan. Because his plan's already better than any of yours. And there's times in serving God that it doesn't always lead us where we thought it was going to lead us. But what we will find along the way is that wherever he has you right now, it's a part of it. You hearing me? Whatever God is doing in your life, and you may not even see it as God. You may be thinking, oh man, what is it? How many of you know stuff happens? Stuff happens. It happens. Other people say other things. But stuff happens. Some people say, something happened. You're not going to believe what just happened. Some people live their life and they're just wondering what happened. Stuff happens. And many times we turn around and we wonder, what was that all about? Many times things happen in our lives and we ask ourselves, how in the world could that have been part of God's plan? We can look back and say, you know what, I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for what happened in my life last year or a decade ago. You see? No matter where you are right now in your life. Paul says the challenge is learning to be content no matter what. Why? Because our life does not consist in our wealth, in our possessions, in what we accumulate and acquire. And so we're constantly battling this philosophy that we got to have just a little bit more. To the point that it becomes destructive in what God has called the life that he has called us to live. We were in downtown Atlanta. It was yesterday, wasn't it? We were in downtown Atlanta, the Westin Hotel. We didn't stay there. But we went to the top, 72 floors, overlooked the city. We sit down at this restaurant. It's called the Sundial. It rotates around the city. Every hour you get to see an entire 360-degree view of the city. We sit down at this restaurant and order a meal, and this is just way out of my character. But I was going to be good. $16 for a meal just is not me. But I thought, hey, we're here. I've never been here before. I can tell you right now, I won't be back. But I was there yesterday. And for $16, they brought out some kind of pasta chicken dish, and they brought it out. And it was like that in the middle. I have a picture of it. I would have brought the PowerPoint and put it on PowerPoint. I put my thumb next to the portion on the plate. Now, how many of you have ever gone to a nice restaurant and you sit down at a restaurant and you pay good money? Because when I pay $3 or $4 for a meal, I expect a good meal. I figured the rest of the money was for the view, because it wasn't worth any more than that, I'll tell you. But you sit down and you pay good money for a good meal, and you sit down and it looks nice, maybe it tastes good, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. Now, am I thinking, for $16, I ought to be able to eat good. I ought to be full. Or at the very least, I ought to be content. Because this word content, it means to be full to satisfaction. Not, now how many of you have ever, you've paid too much for too little, but then there's times that we've paid too little and gotten too much, huh? We've gone down to the super buffet on a Sunday afternoon. And it's like, when they put on the sign, all you can eat, you're like, I'll show you how much I can eat. We're determined to get our money's worth, aren't we? And so we get consumed, and all this is based on the philosophy that we got to have more. If I had more money, if I won the lottery, how many times you've heard that? If I won the lottery, the church wouldn't have no mortgage. God let me win the lottery. I mean, how spiritual can we make some things, huh? But it's a worldly mentality, because God doesn't need your money. He doesn't need your money. He needs your obedience. Amen. Now, if God's people are obedient, the kingdom will have all the money it needs. If God's people are obedient, the church will have all the volunteers it'll need to do the ministry. If we're obedient to what God has called us to do, there is no end to what we can. Your last name's Jones in the place? We're not trying to keep up with the Joneses, okay? But if we were, we'd be in bondage to stuff, wouldn't we? We'd be in bondage to possessions. But you know what? You want to minister to your coworkers, to your neighbors? You will never minister to your next door neighbor if you're not content with your home. If you walk out and you're like, man, I hate this neighborhood. You want to go to church with me next Sunday? That's not a very good witness. Why? Because there's a secret to being content. There is empowerment for you right where you are. No matter how much money you have or don't have, no matter how much status you have or don't have, no matter what position you have in the company, no matter what kind of education you have, there is power in being content where God has you right now. With contentment, your stewardship is tested. We often refer to stewardship, when it comes to finances and tithes and offerings and, things of that nature. Or we even refer to stewardship of our time and our talents and abilities. But when you become content with who you are, you become a good steward. Your stewardship is put to the test. Why? Because if you're content with the car you drive, you're going to take care of it. Contentment says, the car that I've got is good enough. Contentment says, I'm going to take care of what I've got because everything I have comes from Him. And it may not look like so-and-so's car, but maybe you don't have so-and-so's car payment. Thank God for that one, huh? So we're looking at what we have. Contentment tests your stewardship. It determines how well you take care of what God has already given you. If you're content in your marriage, guess what? How are you going to treat your spouse? Your job is to say, God, why do you have me here? Why do you have me here? What do you want to do through me in this situation? How do you want to use my life right now, where things are, the way things are? You see, when we become content, God looks down at our life and He says, for once they're not complaining about, for lack of a better term, the cards they've been dealt. For once, they're not griping and mully-grubbing around. For once, my people who are called by my name are not hanging their head down low to the ground as if the world has just come to an end. My people have found a place of contentment and joy in Jesus Christ. And now, supernatural power is released through your life. If we know the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the creator of this universe, knows you by name, he has breathed life in you, and he says, I have come that they might have life and have it to the fullest, have it more abundant. You know the one who has given you that. Now, if we know him and know him the way we say we know him, and we walk around like this, we don't know him the way we say we know him.